I reckon the other big sigh of relief came from the Collingwood camp. They were there to be got. The Eagles started well, and in the finish, you'd have to say it was one of their best victories for the season. It gives them enormous breathing space, but for sure, I reckon they've dodged a bit of a bullet. But the start of the game and the first half, the pressure was... I mean, if you ever wanted to build up for the last week of September, that was it.
Yeah, well, they certainly they were hot early, weren't they, the Eagles, in their attention to the Collingwood blokes. Now, here's the pressure here. I mean, there was just... Collingwood always find a way out of those crushes, don't they? But they couldn't do it on Saturday.
Yeah, look, that was the thing that struck me. I thought the Eagles' game plan really stood up. And for those of you that don't know a lot about the press when you're talking about this is what it is. They really, really struggled.
What's this, Rizzy? There's O'Brien to Pendlebury, wild hand pass, over to Lynch and to Pritis and a goal. Now, that's the first mistake Pendlebury's made in about 6 years.
And look, that's in the second quarter, and that's on the back of an enormous first quarter of pressure. You don't see Pendlebury just flicking the ball in the corridor like that, and he's thinking, I'm going to get tackled here. Yeah, as I say, full credit to West Coast. Look, Collingwood... some of the problems we talked about last week, I mean, they did get some players back, but they certainly look nowhere near as good as what they have, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
No, but they have got them back, and they've got some breathing space, and Heath Shaw was the star early.
I'm a massive Heath Shaw fan, but even I was surprised at how good he was able to step straight back into it. This is after 9 weeks out, right?
And this is a precise experienced player too. Gaff, don't let him get goal side. There he goes, because, son, I'll tell you what, you let him get goal side, instead of chasing 5 metres, you've got to chase 50 metres.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between an experienced player like Shaw and a young player. And we saw a little bit with some of the Eagles guys. I mean, Shuey we'll look at later on. But Shaw coming back in is, I think I've always said he's a really, really important player for them. The only problem is, now that they don't play next week, you've got another week, and they prefer not to, because they go straight into preliminary final. But Maxwell doesn't play, Shaw doesn't play, so they're just getting back into it. That's a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, they hammered Shaw on the track to get him ready for this. But I just loved his work ethic, the whole thing about him. It was to step back in like he did. And they'll be wrapped with the break, and they've got Thomas to come back in. And Ben Reid, well, I don't know if he had a real hammy or not, but I suspect he's going to play in the prelim too. Under
pressure, though, we saw Scott Pendlebury make one mistake. I tell you what, he did a hell of a lot right. He's been doing it for a long time. Data ranking points versus 113. So he's right up there with the very best. In fact, he's improving, or he's in front. Average disposal about the same. Contested. All the numbers are relatively about the same, except he kicks more goals, Judd creates more goals. And yet, if you look at the reputation between the two, there is still a fair disparity.
Look, well, I think that applies when you compare Juddy with the rest. But I've been he's slow to, not warm to him, but to appreciate just how good he is. But I watched him closely at the weekend. His ability to cover the ground and just to float, and he took a great mark in front of a pack in defence, and then he gets forward. I mean, there's no weakness in his game.
I think the difference is, Juddy, you often see, running and carrying the ball, a hard in and under with 3 blokes and shakes them off. Pendlebury's just a really good player that gets the ball consistently, uses the ball consistently, and sometimes you have to watch the replay back again to realise how good he is. I mean, I think his first half was... something like 25 possessions in the first half.
He was running at a rate of 50 for the game.
And the other thing, he played with a teammate beat him too, had 41 possessions, Dane Swan. That midfield, they had 80 between them, Pendlebury and Swan.
Talk about the midfield down the track, but...
we talked last week about Cox and Nat. I thought Collingwood did a really good job of analysing the opposition's 2 ruckmen. And we can see here, this in the first quarter, the way they surrounded the stoppage here and the way that they just, at the outlets, you can see Johnson on the outside there, and every time there's third man up and you see ball reading the third man up, same thing again here, Pendlebury watching the ball, surrounding the stoppages, and it was a really good setup here. Even when the Eagles got their hands on the ball, they were always seemed to be tackled. So there's no question that the midfielders of Collingwood obviously did their homework along with the midfield coach. And here are the numbers here. You can see 50 to 29 hit-outs, but the hit-outs to advantage 12 to 11 in Collingwood's favour. But the massive stat there is 53 clearances to 31.
So I heard Mickey Malthouse talking about the Jolly, because Jolly's been under a lot of scrutiny of recent times. Mick was pretty happy with his work, and I think that they worked out, might have been because of your whoppers and floppers and doozers and all that last week, about to limit where Nic Nat can go to. They blocked him, didn't they?
Well, I think they did, and you're able to do that at around the ground stoppages. But it was good to see him get the showstopper and the opening bounce and charge forward.